Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
What do you do when you go to an event and somebody says, "What do you do?" And that inevitably comes up. A lot of times people might do something different, what drives you, what excites you. But for the most part, you're going to get the question, well, what is it that you do? And I know there are people out there that will say, well, you know, the elevator pitch is dead, or the 30-second commercial is dead. But what do you say if you get that question, if you really buy into the notion that, you know, elevator pitches aren't worth your time? I don't think everything should rely on your elevator pitch, but I think it's important that you have one. Today on the program, I've got Jeff Klein, and he works with people from elevator pitches to keynote speaking. He guides people to find the right words for each situation, and he's a speaker coach, business networking guru, and he's an author, and has received rave reviews, speaking over 2,000 times, reaching 15,000 business professionals. He's the founder of an organization called Speaker Co-op. Speakercoop.com is where you'll find that, and we'll talk about that later. And he's grown that from a little luncheon that had 50 people attending to an international community that reaches over 20,000 people. He teaches networking and speaking, and speaks to trade associations, sales organizations, conventions, business groups, birthday parties, weddings, bar mitzvah. He does it all. Jeff, welcome to the program.
Hi, Frank. Thanks.
I was kidding about the birthday parties and weddings. Maybe a bar mitzvah. Who knows?
Right.
So anyhow, I guess give us your backstory if you could. How you got.
I was in the film business out of college, working on movies and TV shows here in the Dallas-Fort Worth market, and then had some jobs. Worked for the Texas Film Association and the company behind the Texas Rangers and the baseball club and the Dallas Stars hockey team. And then when I got back into being self-employed, I started an ad agency in 2001, and that's when I discovered formal business networking, but I realized I'd actually been networking my whole life. The ad agency, and somebody said, "Hey, you should come to my networking group." And I showed up at this country club, and there were a bunch of people standing around before the lunch, and some of them were friendlier than others. You know how people stand in a circle with their shoulders closed, and that's not a friendly group. And then the ones with their shoulders open, you can walk up and talk to them. And somebody, we sat down to lunch, and somebody said, started talking about the group, and in just a minute, we'll all do our 30-second commercials. And I turned to the friend who invited me, and I said, "You didn't tell me I was going to have to do anything." And she said, "Oh, don't worry, just do what everybody else does," which is pretty funny in itself, because everybody else did something different than everybody else.
Yeah. Well, even if they did the same, it could be the blind leading the blind, right? I mean, I'm a believer that whatever the first person does, the second person kind of mimics. So if the first person, if the first person gives their zodiac sign, the second person, okay, well, I'm a Pisces.
That happens too.
Yeah.
We're picked up on a theme and everybody else runs with it. But also when you're doing that kind of room, a couple of people the whole room will end their commercial, which is always entertaining.
Yeah.
Not sure it's effective, but it's entertaining.
Yes.
And I don't know what I said that day. I said something that didn't get me any results, but that was the beginning of my figuring it out.
Yeah.
I even took a class on the 30-second elevator pitch at one point. And then I started learning about it, figuring it out through experience and trial and error. And then I joined an organization called CEO Space, which was teaching it at a lunch every Friday as part of the lunch. And I really clicked with that education and wound up teaching it myself after that.
Yeah. Well, good. And then
Yeah,
speakers co-op. I mean, you just kind of, you and I've spoke before last week. You just kind of threw that thing together, and it just,
that was another thing that it was very organic. I had been teaching the elevator pitch when, and had a coffee with several other people who were speaking, all of us for different reasons and with different goals. And I said, well, let's figure out how we can help each other get more engagement. And I said, let's start a lunch and invite all the people we know doing this. And somebody said, great idea, Jeff. Why don't you start a lunch?
yeah,
And we'll and
yeah,
that's where many great ideas go to die. But
yeah.
in that case, I picked up I ran with the idea, and without their support, it wouldn't have happened. But a few of those folks supported it, and we started this lunch, and 50 people showed up at the first meeting, and we knew we had something. So we started doing that once a month starting in January of 2006. And a couple months in, somebody said, "Hey, we should have a website. Jeff, you do websites, right?" And so speakercoop.com was born. And now, 20 years later, or 19 years later, we're an international resource for meeting planners to find speakers, and an educational resource for people who are speaking to get bookings and education and resources.
Are those people who started with you still involved, or is it pretty much your baby at this point?
It's my baby. Some of them are I'm still in touch with, but only one person who was at that first meeting is still on the website.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's how those things tend to go. It's you're one of those people. Don't take this the wrong way. You're either one of those people who's either too stubborn to quit or too stupid to quit, right? I mean, you
Yeah, there's
just
something to
I'm just gonna
something to
go
that.
at it and do it. I think
Yeah.
it's great. I mean, that's where too often people will, well, we see it in podcasting, right? People will start a podcast and they're 6 episodes in and it hasn't made them any money. And they're gonna quit, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Some people, what some call tenacity, other call stubbornness, right?
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
Or
So
perseverance.
yeah, let's talk about elevator pitches, 30-second commercials. That's something you work with people on, and
Yeah, and I mean the elevator pitch is what gave me my speaking career,
yeah,
because I taught it 250 times over a 3-year period, and once a week for a year, and then twice a week for 2 years.
right,
Groups all over DFW, and you figure a lot of stuff out when you're doing that about speaking, and of course the elevator pitch itself.
right.
And the what's funny, and when you talked about the question, what do you do? I have a whole class about that. How do you answer? What do you do? And I like to teach people to answer what do you do with a question as
Oh,
opposed to a
can you
statement.
give us an example?
Yeah, sure. Um, uh, I help people. Uh, I help people change the world. So the what you want to do in answer to the question, what do you do, is answer it in a way that the next person will ask you another question.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, I got you.
Yeah. So
Okay,
you don't answer. It doesn't have to be. I'm sorry. You don't answer it with a question. You answer with a statement that invokes a question.
okay, okay,
So you continue the conversation.
right.
Otherwise, it's a conversation killer. I sell insurance. Yeah, that's a conversation killer.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I agree.
Uh,
I changed the world, or I help people sleep at night. Yeah,
that's one of my favorites.
yeah. I like that. I like that.
Because and then your answer, and then so it's question, answer, question, and then you ask another question. Do you know anybody who? Have you ever heard about? And those kind of things that then lead to a referral, which is
Right.
the thing that your 30-second commercial should do. Should lead to a referral.
Okay.
Too
Uh,
often the elevator pitch becomes an infomercial, and if your elevator pitch is an infomercial, you're doing it wrong.
Well, my 2 cents when I get hit with those, it it's really off-putting
Yeah,
because it's like, okay, I've got to put the wall up because I got to put the wall up and grab my wallet, right? Because this, you know,
yeah, yeah. They're talking at you, or they're trying to sell you something.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Who's
So
who's your financial advisor?
yeah,
Uh, uh,
yeah.
what don't you like about it? They just, yeah, it's just like, I didn't wake up this morning saying, geez, I'm going to this event. I hope I hope somebody's there going to sell me something.
Right, right. And that's one of my three don'ts of your commercial. We'll talk about those before we're done, but
Okay.
the one of the three don'ts is don't sell to the room when you're doing your elevator pitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's super important. Uh, and you also have to remember that depending on where you're at, what the purpose for the elevator pitch. If you're in a networking environment and everybody else is doing one, your purpose is to get a referral, to get an introduction.
Right.
So you need to ask for something, ask for an introduction,
Right.
so that's your purpose. If you're in an elevator, your purpose is to get the business card of the person you're talking to, because otherwise you won't be able to follow up. You're not going to
Right.
ask the person in the elevator for an introduction because you're only have 30 seconds. That's why I got that name of the
Yeah.
elevator.
Right.
But if you're meeting somebody for the first time in an elevator, what can you say that will get them to give you their business card so you can then reach out later on and build a relationship?
What are some of the most unique elevator pitches that you've heard?
There was a guy who at the Plano Chamber of Commerce used to always bring a tambourine or a drum and play it every time he did his elevator pitch.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, and
Okay, that's unique. Was it effective?
I don't think it was.
Okay. Yeah,
I
to me
mean,
that's kind of annoying.
yeah,
There's
he got attention and he got remembered, but he never told anybody who he wanted to meet.
right.
Yeah, yeah, and there was another guy who, for whatever reason, people do that thing where they get the room to finish their commercial for them,
Yeah.
but his was next to Hobby Lobby because it rhymed with something, but he was branding where his shop was, but I there's first of all there's more than one Hobby Lobby.
Right.
And I never understood why what that accomplished.
Yeah, people couldn't recognize opportunities
Yeah,
based on.
my friend, the estate attorney who got everybody to repeat, she'd say if you don't have a will, and everybody would say the state of Texas has one for you. That's effective.
Yeah.
That you're going to remember that, and that's why why you need to hire her to do your will.
Right.
But next to Hobby Lobby, I never understood what the point of that was,
Right.
except to have something for people to remember. Which again, to me, you need to tell people who you want to. You need to make a request for
Right.
referral for that introduction.
Well, I guess to rephrase my question, or I guess to clarify, there's cute and then there's effective, and they're not necessarily the same thing.
No, they're definitely not. Um, there was a gal who always did poems, and hers were much more effective because the poem was about her business. She was in the marketing business, and so it was always effectively marketing her marketing business
Right.
poems that talked about how
Different.
she helped her clients.
Okay. Very creative.
Yeah,
Very creative.
she was in a creative business and she did creative commercials, so
Yeah.
got to see her do her stuff.
Well, I think that's, again, that's cute and effective.
Yeah,
I think an estate planning attorney or a divorce attorney, um, I don't know that it might be cute. I don't know that it's effective because you're in a you're in a profession, and people are coming to you at
right.
their most difficult time.
Yeah.
Um,
It
so
was active in being memorable.
Yeah.
Uh, and then, there was the dance instructor who would do a little dance as part of her commercial in the middle of the room, so everybody saw that.
Right.
The one that was always bugged me was the guy who sold carpet and would take one of those sample boards of carpet and drop it on the floor to make everybody pay attention, make that loud bang when he got up, and to me that was more annoying than
Yeah.
effective. Uh,
Yeah.
uh,
Well,
so
it's probably effective the first time. The
well, you always know he's there,
Yeah.
uh, but you don't appreciate him being there after the first time.
Now, would that happen like in the context of like a BNI meeting or something like that? Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So he wasn't at a chamber function. Everybody's milling around and
No,
every.
it was at a meeting where everybody went around the room introducing themselves, or
Okay.
doing. And yeah. So and the happy hour networking is different than the formal. Everybody's doing a commercial networking.
Right.
Yeah. So that the happy hour networking is where that what do you do response comes in, more
Right.
than elevator pitch itself.
Well, when you're meeting somebody for the first time, you have to have something to say. Right.
Yes, absolutely, and better the conversation starter as opposed to the conversation killer, which is your job title is a conversation killer
Right.
most of the time, unless you're a rocket scientist or
Right.
something,
Right.
or a test pilot or something. Um,
Well, let's
so
circle back and let's talk about your 3 don'ts.
okay, so that don't settle the room's huge, and what's here was something that people should think about, Frank, is it's something as subtle as taking the word you out of your language and substituting you for your customer, your colleague, your family. So
Yeah.
even just having the word you in your wording of what you're used to talking about in your commercial, because it turns people off. It's even if you're not meaning to sound like you're selling to them. We help you, da 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 da. It's we help our clients, or we help your friends.
Yeah. I noticed that when I was working in consulting, executive recruiters were effective on that because they never came in, hey, we're looking for you, but it was always, we're looking for a tax professional with 5-6 years experience. Okay, that's me. But they
Yeah,
wouldn't, do you know somebody? There's somebody at the office, and I'm
they
sure they
want you to
were
self-identify. Yeah,
right. It was less threatening than, hey, I really want to pitch you on this
right.
position in Schenectady, New York, right? It's like
Yeah,
I can't hang up the phone fast enough, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's a
so
nice town. I was a kid there.
what's that?
I lived in Schenectady when I was 10 years old.
Oh, well, I had a job interview there with or not IBM, GE. GE's
Yeah,
headquartered there.
yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm not putting down Schenectady, but it was just kind of
I understand. I
it was
get it.
an executive recruiter from New York, and it's like, I'm not looking to go to New York City. Oh, I won't send you to New York City. How about Schenectady?
Yeah,
I'd
I'll
never
say
even heard of it.
5 hours north. Yeah.
Yeah, never even heard of it.
Yeah. So
So
there's an atomic power plant.
yeah. All right, first ones
Yeah.
don't sell.
Don't
Don't
sell the
sell.
room. Don't ask questions. So questions are very effective as a speaker, but you don't have time to do it effectively in 30 seconds.
Okay.
So some people will say, like, who does this, or who had a car accident this year? Just turn that question into a positive statement. Everybody in the room knows someone who had a car accident.
Yeah.
And instead of trying to use the question, because you just don't have time in 30 seconds to do it effectively. The third one is one that makes my training different from a lot of other training, including BNI, as you mentioned. And that is, don't start with your name or end with your name.
Mm.
Start with the story you're telling about whose problem you solve, and end with the call to action. Your name goes second to last. And you end with a call to action because it's a commercial. And
Right.
effective commercials tell people what to do next. So I teach to, and this is what I learned at CEO Space, and you with your and by saying something like write their name on a business card so we can arrange an introduction. So if you know that person I was just asking to meet, write their name on your business card, pass it to me, and we'll arrange an introduction.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so the call to action is important. And the
Okay.
truth is, when you start with your name, nobody remembers it at the beginning.
Well, I think most people start with their name. Well, I should say that. I have
There,
started with my name
yeah,
because I'm not ready to talk.
yeah, that's part of it too.
And that
Yeah,
comes in, that's preparation. I
yeah.
know if I'm prepared, then I will, I help people become more successful through networking.
I've actually been interrupted because I didn't start with my name, which is so supremely rude.
Yeah.
I've started talking and I've had somebody say, "What's your name?" I
I'm,
beg your pardon? Are you
I,
are you are you really interrupting me
yeah.
talking?
Yeah. I will get to that. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I promise you I will tell you my name before I'm done. I
Yeah.
promise. But yeah, unbelievable. I mean, really, think of how absolutely rude that is.
Well,
And
it
to think,
takes you off, Jeff, it takes you off your game,
yeah,
right? Especially if there's some, um, in organizations like BNI and my organization, AmSpirit, there's somebody timing. Are you going to
right.
start the timer over? No. And so it's just, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a vibe killer. It just
Yeah.
kills the
And
vibe.
again, one of the reasons to not start with your name is to shake things up a little bit, to get
Yeah.
people to pay attention.
Yeah. Well, and if you're in an organization like that, most people know your name anyways, or should know your name,
Well,
right?
so often, like if you go to one of those chamber events where there's 50 people every Friday morning or whatever, somebody's reads your name off to let you know it's your turn anyway.
Yeah.
So you're repeating something somebody just said.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I call it word economy, right? Even when you're writing, it's like, okay, if I can write it in 30 words as opposed to 50, I'm going to get more people reading it. And if I can
Yeah.
speak it in 30 rather than 50, I'm going to get more people tuned into it. And saying your name now, Jeff Klein is, you wanted me to get this in here. Jeff Klein is easy. Jeff Klein is easy, but I have other people where it's a mouthful. And it's
Right.
not so much, people's names, their first and their last names are two words, right? Jeff Klein are two syllables, right?
Yeah. I'm easy. My name is definitely easy, and
Yeah,
Frank Agin is not too hard either.
no, but you get, James Grabowski, it's
Yeah.
a mouthful. You only have 10 seconds left. You just said your name. So,
Sergeant Wojciechowicz. Uh,
yeah.
just like it.
um,
Yeah. Um, but yeah, and for some people, I recommend they not say their last name.
yeah.
I'm Bob with Farmers Insurance.
Well,
If
I,
maybe
I,
you.
yeah, I agree. I agree. Um, and somebody in one of my groups said that. He said, I'll get you my last name later if you really need it, right? Because nobody's writing it down anyways. It's
Yeah,
Chris. I'm Chris.
yeah,
You want to talk, we'll talk, So
yeah, yeah.
let's shift gears here as we kind of close up. I want you to talk with us about Speakers Co-op. I had a long conversation on it, and this is my impression. Very inexpensive platform for if you're looking to be a speaker. It's not a guarantee, obviously, but it's a very inexpensive platform to kind of get yourself out there and get some exposure. But that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. You bet. We give amazing value to people who are speaking, and we act as a matchmaker. We get over 1,100 hits a month of people looking for speakers. Our website, we get people from all over the world looking for speakers, and you can get on our website for as little as $29 a month. We have 3 levels of membership. If you want to pay annually, that 29 a month is $299 a year. We have a $499 a year, a $999 a year, or monthly $499 or $49 a month, $99 a month. But what we do is we have 19 years of back-end education on our website to help you be a better speaker, to help you make money from speaking as a business person. We have practice stages every month to help you polish what you're doing, improve what you're doing. We have masterminding every month to help you as a business person. Our value is ridiculous for how we help folks. And a lot of what we do is just help time off your journey because we've done it. So you don't have to make the same mistakes. You can learn from our mistakes. It's a lot less painful.
Well, just my 2 cents on it. And full disclosure, I have not signed up, and it is my intent to. I've got a conference coming up, and we're going to really dig into it after the conference. But I think the value is the network itself, the people you're going to meet. You know, but I mean, seriously, I mean, there's somebody out there talking on leadership. They're not talking on networking or referrals or vice versa. And even, well, you and I talked about this when we first met. It's like, you know, you kind of speak on networking. I speak on networking. A lot of times you go to an organization and you get an opportunity to speak and you do a great job. And it doesn't matter how good of a job you did. They're not going to have you on next year or the year after. There's kind of a waiting period, you know, but they're going to say, hey, do you know somebody else? Well, I do. I do. So I see that as a huge value.
And you're on the same website as a guy who has done 13 TEDx speeches, Frank Agin. And you're on the same website as a guy who is a certified speaking professional from the National Speakers Association, John Chen, who wrote the book on engaging virtual meetings. And you're on the same website as Howard Berg, who holds the world record for speed reading. You know, so I mean, we've got an amazing roster of people in our community.
Yeah.
We've had Speaking Hall of Fame people on our website, and it's, you know, so you rub shoulders with amazing individuals, you know, former athletes, and we have a member who was a hostage for 5 years in Venezuela.
Oh, wow.
Now here and helping people with them, you know, teaching them some incredible things about leadership and perseverance and stuff. So again, the community has always been one of the things I'm most proud of.
Well, as I listen to you speak, I'm thinking to myself, you know, there's probably an endless supply of podcast guests.
Yes, sir.
Sitting there on Speaker Co-op.
That's correct.
Best way to get a hold of you? Can they get a hold of you through www.speakercoop.com? Is that the best way?
Yeah, there's links for me all over the site.
Okay. I'll get that in the show notes. Hey, this has been great. We'll have to get you back on. I really appreciate Jamie Ellithorpe introducing us.
Yep.
And you never know, right? You never know. So this has been wonderful.
And, you know, Frank walks the walk. He's already given me 2 amazing introductions. I've gotten a speaking engagement from an introduction, and maybe even more. It looks like I might be going to a national convention from an introduction Frank gave. And I've got another introduction. I've responded to the email, but he may turn into a new client as well. So thank you for those 2 introductions, Frank. I appreciate that.
I am happy to help you. I'm you know, what goes around comes around, so I'm happy.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AMSPIRIT.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.